Video is live.
Yes, it is.
Still don't have that down.
That
I'm
countdown.
sure
You missed that countdown, don't you?
I really missed that countdown. I'm sure people are really enjoying that part. Like, oh, I wonder how this show is going to start. Where for the a millionth time, Patrick is caught off guard, even though he does this regularly Mondays and Fridays, and it's the
Yeah.
same.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, to be fair, it's only been like this for the last, like what, 3 episodes or something. So
that's true. That's true. No heads up. They didn't come to me for any meaningful feedback about Google Plus,
no,
like letting
despite the
us
fact
do
that
Hangouts offline.
we are the best show that uses Google Hangouts anywhere in the world by far. Clearly,
Yeah.
the best produced, the most thought out.
So we're close, man.
We are.
Man, we are close.
7 days until the next generation more or less officially begins.
That's right. That's right. I head out to San Francisco next Thursday. I get in on early on Thursday morning at some point to join those guys on Friday. So my Xbox One and PS4 will just be boxes in the back of this house for a week and a half, which seems maybe that's the most appropriate place for the launch set of two consoles. Is to just sit untouched in a box.
I mean,
when
it
they
definitely
arrive.
goes. It definitely goes with the current launch lineup for most of these consoles. Because I mean, yeah, there's some games, but I don't know how many of those are definitely like excited must plays.
What, Knack? You're not fucking psyched for Knack?
Congratulations, you're like the 7,000th person to make that joke in the last like 2 days.
I hope that game's actually good, though.
I do too.
I hope the videos are deceiving. I think the videos make that game look awfully boring. But it does seem like it might be a pretty pleasant two-player co-op game.
I feel like it's going to be the Kameo of this generation debut. It's the
I liked Kameo.
But that's the thing. There is a subset of people who adore Kameo, and there
thought
are
the
a lot
game
of
was
people
pretty
who are
good.
just kind of on it, And I think that's how that game's going to roll out. There's going to be a bunch of people who really love it, and a bunch of people who are just like, eh.
I don't know if I would say I loved Kameo, but for the time for launch, I legitimately liked that game. I think
Yeah,
I also didn't have a choice. It was part of my Costco bundle.
right.
When I got my Xbox 360, I have waited in lines. I enjoyed that stuff. I don't do that as much these days. Both of my new consoles are pre-ordered from Amazon. They will show up the day that they come out at some point on a truck, and I'm over the days of waiting in line.
Yeah.
But for the Xbox 360, one of the strategies I used to have was, when you try and you kind of look at the stores in your neighborhood, you try and figure out, what is the spot that's gonna get an allocation machines, but hopefully there'll be fewer people there. Places where you have to pay to be a member. I imagine this strategy still holds up. There are still people that go there, but places like Costco, they'll force you into bundles, so you're buying an extra controller, which you're gonna get anyway,
Right.
and maybe you have to get a game, but whatever. And these days you could just flip it on eBay and get 75% of your money back. I did that, so I got Kameo in my bundle, and sort of like groaned because I was like, I'm way more excited for Perfect Dark Zero because hot garbage there. But I'm one of those guys that legit liked Kameo. It probably doesn't hold up very well, but at the time it was goddamn pretty.
Mhm.
And it was a solid sort of action platformer. So
It was
I'm
just
not
kind
going to
of
go back.
I mean, in a sense, it was a little bit of a nothing game in the sense that, like, it played well, it looked really nice, but it didn't have a lot of personality that really stuck with you. It was just sort of like remember something from the story from Kameo right now. Do it.
Fairies. Green fairy creature.
Exactly.
Castle. There was a castle.
There was a castle. So yeah, I think that's what's going to happen with Knack. I think it's going to be a charming enough game. I think it will play well enough. I think it will look good on the system. And then, a couple of years down the road, no one's going to remember anything they did in that game. But
yeah, probably. I feel like Knack is one of those games that will probably get a much better life as a PlayStation Plus game in a couple of months. Like I wouldn't be surprised. It's looking at it, doesn't look. Is it a $60 game? I don't want to say that off the bat. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not.
I think everything is a $60 game at this point.
You're probably right. If
it's not a downloadable game, I'm pretty sure everything is a $60 game.
It is $60. Yeah, maybe $60 might be stretching it. But I haven't played it, so don't want to get in the prejudging game. But
sure.
I am sort of hopeful that maybe that game is a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
I am hopeful that that is a game that I have just spent $400 on a machine. Let's justify this to my wife. Let's play a video game together.
Yeah, and it is what it's. I think at this point the only. No, it's one of only two console exclusives kind of left for that launch, right? Because it's that and Killzone for PS4, and then everything else is third party. Or am I misremembering that?
There's Resogun.
I'm talking about like the stuff that's like in like
Stores?
stores. Yeah, like the retail game stuff.
Yeah, I think so. If not,
Because there's like a bunch of downloadable stuff coming right around launch. So they have that advantage like pretty high. But as far as like the retail game things, I think those are the only two major exclusives because Drive Club and I don't remember if there was another one, but Drive Club definitely got delayed. So
Yep. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold out for Knack.
all right,
No one's taking it seriously, but Knack, I believe in you.
you're gonna continue to pine for Knack.
Yeah, I'm gonna pine for Knack.
You're gonna hold up a boombox for Knack.
All
All right.
Yeah,
no,
he's a talented guy. He has made
is.
great games in the past. Spyro the Dragon, great game.
He's also done some of the absolute best talking for Sony during their promotional cycle for this stuff. Like when he was up there explaining all the PS4 stuff and kind of, breaking it all down. He has been one of their best like figurehead talkers since he started doing that stuff.
He's got a bit of a creepy eye stare.
A little bit.
But yeah, there was actually a really wonderful feature that went up on Wired this week, where it's basically how this white dude came in to architect the PS4, and talks a lot about sort of the Japanese or the corporate structure of Sony, but also what's unique about the corporate structure of Sony in that it is less Japanese than you might think, contrasted against some other companies. And basically just his story, like there's the Wired story kicks off with this anecdote from just prior to the PS3 unveiling. And Shuhei Yoshida, who is a guy that now everyone knows, but he's been with Sony for a very, very, very long time. And he got this call 2 or 3 weeks before the PS3 unveiling at E3 and was told, by the way, the controller is going to have a motion sensor in it. You need to have something there for the unveiling. And they managed to, at the last second, rejigger Warhawk. And if you'll remember that demo, and if you go back and look at that demo, like it's very clear it barely works.
Right.
And that's because that game was never supposed to have that. It was just thrown in 2 weeks beforehand. And that sort of kicks off this much larger feature where they kind of break down throwing Ken Kutaragi under the bus. Even by name, some of the hardware guys are like, well, now that Ken's not around, we can do X, Y, and Z. And it's kind of interesting.
It's pretty savage.
It is pretty savage, but it's also, it kind of brings the whole sort of like Sony thing full circle in a really satisfying way. I feel like reading that, all of this stuff is a PR game. Like, not everything is 100% honesty. Every company's trying to show themselves in the best light possible, but I haven't felt, I've read a bunch of stories about that where they, talking about Sony's struggles in the PS3 and what they've done with the PS4, talking about their internal culture. I've seen a lot of stories about that for the PlayStation. I feel like I haven't seen a whole lot of that for the Xbox. And humanizing the people behind these boxes is not necessarily goal number one. No. But as someone that pays attention to a lot of this stuff, I have to admit that it is working on me to a certain extent.
Well, and Microsoft, this entire cycle has done a fairly poor job of messaging the best features of that box and the philosophies behind that box. Because, there are interviews that have been coming out since the embargo on some of the preview stuff lifted today, where people are talking about, like their all digital thing and the whole, used games and all that other stuff that they had built in originally. There was a purpose behind that. There was something more than just trying to kind of, kneecap the used games market. They had these ideas and things they wanted to do. They were just terrible about communicating that stuff. And so, that's kind of the advantage Sony's had at this point, though, now that things have kind of evened out and we're, basically 2 weeks away from both systems being out, you look at the launch lineups and you look at the PR messaging and things are kind of neck and neck now. It's like I feel like things have balanced out a little bit more and there's maybe just about equal justification for each system comparatively, other than the $100 price difference.
Yeah, some of the interviews coming out of Microsoft have really rubbed me the wrong way in terms of specifically what you're talking about, the sort of like reflection of the last 6 to 8 months as this has played out up until launch, and talking about sort of how they handled not only the messaging but the policies that they have largely distanced themselves from. And there was a quote, I don't know if it was Phil Spencer or I think Pinello, I think is the other guy. I'm not sure who said it, but it was one of them. They're out kind of out in front giving a lot of these interviews, and they said, well, people just weren't ready for it. And that just,
it's a little condescending.
And it's also not true. And it's disingenuous to what their own changes were, which were to say, they were wrong. Mm-hmm. And there is a small part of it that is, getting ahead of a full digital transition, but it was because they weren't cognizant of, the fact that we are still partially in physical. And it just struck me as a completely disingenuous and, like you said, condescending way to look at the last 6 months, as opposed to what they could have said, which was just to be humble and say, you know what, policies weren't in line with what our customers were expecting. We have some really great plans for digital in the future. We want to empower people, with their digital content. We're going to be rolling that stuff out in the next 12 to 18 months. Like that's the version I want. That's what tells me they've learned the right lessons. Like this other stuff really just strikes me as they saw pre-order numbers and decided to go running for the hills. I just,
went to panic mode.
And it bothered me. I hate quotes like that, like because I feel like what you need right now, is more stories like me looking at that Wired piece, which in some ways came across as a bit of a fluff piece. It was very pro Sony, but also you can write those pieces because they're humble. It's a lot harder to write those pieces humble and you aren't being honest, and that's what some of that stuff still kind of comes across as. I mean, at this point it's games, so it's getting less and less about that, but it's just that really irks me when I read that, and it was just like, come on, dude. I know you're giving a million of these interviews, but be a little more honest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honesty is never necessarily the best policy when it comes to the PR game and this stuff. So it's just. But again, at least presenting yourself as a little bit humbled and a little bit self-aware and conscious of like how this all has played out over the last several months certainly couldn't hurt. Even if you're not being totally, upfront and honest about it, at least you can kind of play it up a little bit.
Yep. And it was interesting. I started. So I've been at my parents' place for the last couple of months since moved back, saving money and just my wife winding down stuff with her job. So starting to look at places in Chicago, and like just bizarrely, weirdly enough, end up with several ones we looked at had tenants still in them. And managed to strike up several next-gen conversations, just like kind of out of the blue. One was because a guy had a PC connected to his TV, and as we had finished looking at the place, I was like, there aren't many people that have a full tower PC connected to their TV unless they're playing Steam games and doing media streaming. And he was totally one of those guys. In fact, he, weirdly enough, ends up doing marketing contract work for Ubisoft, of all things. And then another spot that I looked at, the guy who was showing it off, like the apartment dude, he asked me why, my wife mentioned something about games, and then he mentioned that he had pre-ordered a PS4, and it was just curious. Like I didn't come away with anything grand or profound. Like there's no real aha moment, but one of the things that I think I would encourage people to do, one of the things that I find really interesting, and especially given the last couple of weeks where I think, there have been hotheads on a lot of sides and stupid things said on places like Twitter, when people should just maybe write a rough draft and think about whether they want to say it or not, is like it's very healthy to go out into the real world a little bit and kind of get a grounded sense of how people talk about this stuff when they're not on the internet. I think it also is just really interesting to find like what buzzwords stick. Like, some of the negative stuff about the Xbox, people don't necessarily know what they're talking about, I have found, when they speak about it. But some of the stuff is stuck. I've heard nothing about resolutions and power, but stuff about the used games, like some of that stuff has stuck, and I don't, hard to say, anecdotes are not, you don't extrapolate them to a broader message, but from the two guys I talked to was PS4, PS4, PS4. I
Yeah.
don't, could be completely random, but it was interesting. It made me want to go like hang out at a Best Buy for an afternoon, which sounds like a really terrible idea.
I can't. Why would you do that to yourself?
I don't. Where else do people go?
I don't know. I mean, I've had similar anecdotal stuff. Like, I went to a Halloween party, a couple weeks ago, and a bunch of people found out what I did for a living and started asking me a couple of questions here and there about Xbox One stuff and all that. But again, it's like you said, the messaging that has stuck is the stuff that was generally covered by mainstream press around E3 and immediately following E3. The stuff like, the used game stuff, the weird issues with the pricing and stuff Microsoft was saying. I feel like maybe that's because there haven't been a ton of like mainstream articles about where things are at now. Like that Wired thing is probably like the most high profile, non-straight endemic press thing I've seen Sony do so far. And now Microsoft has all this, coverage coming out today from a variety of places. I think it's like, a lot of people just don't read game sites. They read the stuff that you read in, more mainstream tech blogs and other things. And I think that sometimes they just latch on to what messages they got the last time they felt like covering that stuff.
Yeah, and that $100.
Yeah, that $100 is not. It's not something to just be ignored.
Yeah, I definitely heard that over and over. Well, curious to see how it shakes out. But yeah, I don't know. So I meant to rope around to this before, but have you done like the launch, like stand in line thing before? Is that something that you have engaged with in the past, or have you been in the press too long and not had to really deal with it?
So the only time I've ever actually done it was before I went to work at GameSpot, but it was with Jeff and Ryan McDonald, Ryan, and I think like one other person for the PlayStation 2, because they needed to get more PlayStation 2s for the office, and they didn't have enough. So we all went and waited in line overnight at a Walmart in Roanoke Park, California, with a bunch of parents. It was a little bit of like a weird kind of like separatist society at a certain point. Like we had governed our own rules. Like there was nobody at Walmart governing anything. We had to like keep order ourselves. So like the line was what it was. A couple of people tried to come in and just cut through it, and like we just revolted. We're like, nope, back of the line, can't do it. Starting fights and stuff, and it was kind of insane. And then as soon as we got our PS2s out of that Walmart, Ryan and I headed off to Sears. Jeff and like Brian went off to another place to go get more. So it was just like this weird targeted effort to try and collect as many PlayStation 2s for GameSpot as humanly possible. I ended up keeping one, but the rest all went to them. Other than that, I have never done that for an actual console. Like in most cases, I don't buy launch consoles because I don't really like early adopting anything, and I don't really like most game console launch lineups, so I don't really see a whole lot of point in it. In this case, when I am in a place where I have to write reviews of games and I'm covering games, I try to get them relatively early just so I can do it for the work purposes. But if I was doing this for my own, pleasure, I would not be buying either of these systems at launch. I would be probably waiting until like March or April.
Yeah, my favorite. I've done the launch lineup a number of times. My first console transition being in the press was even the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. I was still in college when all of that went down, and so I've done two transitions where I've stood in line. I didn't stand in line for an Xbox. I got that later. I didn't stand in line for a PS3. I got that later. But my favorite moments is when you get to the place and you're in line. And I was never crazy enough to be the first person in line, but I'd always end up somewhere in like the 30 to 40 range, probably at one of the bigger outlets. Is that moment of truth at around maybe 4 a.m. when they come out and they do the first head count. And they're counting everyone in line. They're checking that against the stock they have. And they won't explain anything about what they have in the store. You don't know if you've wasted your entire night waiting in line because maybe you wanted a specific system or a specific SKU, but they've only got a couple of those. That is like this horrifying moment of, have I just wasted everything I've been doing for the last 24 hours, as they just silently come through checkbox. Like, I mean, fortunately, if you get a nice enough guy that'll come out and actually tell you allocation, that happened when I did the GameCube. He came out really early. I was just beyond the point of being able to buy one, and so at least at around 3 a.m. I was able to cut my losses and move on. But I'm curious if other people, in the chat are going out and doing that stuff. Like, please pass on your stories when that stuff happens. Like, I would love to know tales from the line, or if most people are probably just buying them online. I feel like more people are increasingly doing that. But for people that maybe get caught up in the zeitgeist the night before, kind of like what I did with the Wii, where I wasn't going to buy one, and then it was like, I'm going to go to Walmart, and then
Suckers,
you go find
all
a place
of you.
in line.
We live in a post-Amazon world. You don't have to do that anymore. You just have to be mindful of that ahead of time. That's it. That's the only thing you have to pay attention to, is just knowing at some point whether you're going to want that thing 6 months down the road or not. That's it. You don't ever have to wait another line if you just think ahead on this stuff.
And what I started doing, was like right out of both press conferences. At the end of E3, I think it was you guys all left a little early, and then Vinny, Drew, and I have historically left later in the afternoon so we can sleep in and get a couple post E3 beers before heading to the airport.
Sure.
And we all sat around. Well, not Drew, but Vinny and I just sat around and then pre-ordered everything because they don't charge your cards.
Yeah.
So there's no harm in just pre-ordering it and then canceling that pre-order later down the line. So I always do that for everything, and then you can always cancel it before your card gets charged.
I am starting to realize now that about $900 is about to be charged to my credit card. And
I know.
I am scrambling for other receipts to put together for work purpose related tax write-offs this year to see if I can actually make that cutoff, which I think is like $4 or $5 grand or something, so I can actually do that. Yeah.
So man, it's so close. It's weird. It is really weird to think.
It's right there. We're on the precipice.
Yeah. And the plan is we'll keep doing this show even though I'm going to be out in San Francisco. We might push it back an hour so that I don't have to be up at 7:30 to do it. But we are going to make some other people get up that early. I put out a brief call on Twitter yesterday. I was thinking about we should have some more guests on our Monday shows where there's less to talk about. And fortunately, the call was answered by a great many people. So I'm lining up people's schedules. But Greg Kasavin, Jeff Kanata, Sean Vanneman, Jake Rodkin, Nels Anderson, a whole lot of folks responded and are interested in being on the show. So gonna have a lot of cool people in the future, I think, which should be a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know all of those names, so that is very exciting to me.
Anything this week?
Not a ton. I did the wrestling podcast this week, and was trying to record another movie podcast with Rory before that all kind of went sideways yesterday. But no, I've just been catching up on some backlog stuff. I finally started playing Tomb Raider. I haven't gotten super far into it, but I got a couple hours in, and I kind of get what everyone was talking about with that game now. Like, yeah, no, that is actually a really cool, reboot of that series. Like, I've never been a big Tomb Raider fan. Like, it's never been my thing, but I like what they've done with this one a lot. I just, from a visual standpoint and from a mechanical standpoint, I think that they have made some really smart decisions with that game, and I'm curious to see where that story goes. Other than that, just kind of playing more backlog stuff here and there, stuff that I've had on Steam forever, but I've only played like 2 hours of, just kind of dabbling around in it. Nothing too specific.
I've been playing this game called Master Reboot.
Okay, what's that about?
Put a quick look up on the site earlier this week. Some random game that showed up on Steam, and someone tipped it my way. It was originally called Soul Cloud, now it's called Master Reboot. The concept is basically that someone develops a social service akin to a Twitter or a Facebook, in which we're able to distill computationally the sort of human experience, the human soul, into data that can be uploaded to a cloud, and then people, upon their passing, can go and visit them. And the game takes place in a world where that has gone horribly wrong. There has been a server crash. People have lost their loved ones. There is a sort of maniac soul thing on the loose, and like the world has accepted these souls to the point that there are when there are server crashes or when there are other problems and people are lost, they publish that they've died again, like that they die a second time. And it's a really interesting setup, and the game has a Tron sort of look, I guess. That'd be the closest thing I can think of. It's got really vibrant, bright colors, which is sort of the antithesis of what you sort of expect from a game that's trying to scare you. And Master Reboot isn't sort of your typical horror game where outright it is constantly trying to find ways to unnerve you. There's just kind of general sense of unease and tension, and the game does have some jump scares, but it's sort of a horror game second. It just happens to have some scares, but the rest of it is sort of more you sort of piecing together people's lives, trying to figure out. So the game starts in this hub world, and then you have different moments in people's lives that are scattered in that hub, such as a moment on a plane, or a beach memory, or a moment from school. And then you go into these scenarios and you solve some pretty small puzzles, and then also find little trinkets that explain a little bit more about their lives. And it's just such a interesting concept for a game that also makes perfect sense for a video game, and is, I think, sort of really contextually relevant, given Twitter just had its IPO, and just sort of how we treat our lives. And that question that's come up on the podcast when I was back there of what happens to your stuff. In this case we're talking sort of digital rights management, but like what happens to the things you've bought and the things you've acclimated or accrued in life? What happens after death? And so the game explores some pretty interesting questions. I'm at the very end, so we'll see if it manages to really address that in any meaningful way. But even just the setup I found was really interesting. So I would suggest people check that out if they're looking for something to play, because I've really enjoyed it so far.
Definitely take a look at the quick look, since that will probably give you a good idea. That does sound really interesting. I might actually have to check that out. I still need to play Year Walk, though. You've been bugging me about that one, so I need to do that before the year is over. So that's probably next on my list.
Year Walk or Device 6. Pick your poison with Simogo Games. Both those are goddamn excellent. And that's what I've noticed. I keep track of all the games that I meaningfully play in a little text document. Like that, if I finish a game or if I get through a significant chunk and for whatever reason drop it, I just mark it down, just because then at the end of the year I don't have to spend like an hour looking at a Wikipedia entry of the games that came out that year, or a Steam page trying to figure out what I played. And there's not a lot of really obvious stuff, not like a real consensus game this year, but man, a lot of really good goddamn games came out in 2013.
Yeah, I put down a list the other day of games that could potentially be on my Game of the Year list. I ended up with a solid 15 that I really, really liked. None of which are like an overall overwhelming number one. Like there's a lot of really good stuff that I have enjoyed, but nothing that has stuck out to me as like, this is by far the best game of the year. Like this is clearly the front runner. It's a lot of things that are kind of weirdly neck and neck, and I can't remember the last year I had something like that happen, because usually like there's one or two that I'm kind of floating between for the lead, but everything that I've enjoyed this year I've kind of enjoyed on, I don't know, roughly the same level. And I mean there's still a few things coming out that could potentially float their way on there. I haven't played Black Flag yet. I'm waiting for next gen on that one. Mario obviously is something a lot of people. I'm super excited for that one.
So the Japanese TV commercials, oh my god!
I haven't seen those. Are they good?
Oh my god, they're so good. But you probably should watch
Mario?
them. We should just
Is there
wait.
a lot of Cat Mario?
We should just wait. Oh my god, that game! Certain press has copies of that and Zelda, and they don't include me. And
I do believe our office has copies of that now. So when you get out there, you might be able to.
I don't know. That just seems mean to myself to like play a little bit. Well, I guess by the time I come back,
just a taste. Just take a taste.
Because those games come out on. I guess those games all come out on that Friday, right?
Yeah, they all come out. Everything comes out on that Friday.
God damn. A lot of games still to play. A lot of games
still the Zelda. Still got that Zelda coming. There's a lot. There's a lot to pay attention to.
I've also been playing a significant chunk of Typing of the Dead Overkill.
Yeah, I played more of that. I realized I'm really good at that game, and I'm okay with continuing to play it, even though it is kind of terrible.
Why is it terrible?
Well, it's janky. It's kind of a janky port, and sort of like it all feels a little bit thrown together. But at the same time, I'm having fun with it because I'm a fast typer, so I feel like I'm really good at it.
So you want to know something crazy that might explain some of that stuff? So I did an interview with they were Blitz Games, and now they're something Dream. They're a new studio, but so that game was in development at Blitz because they worked on the engine for the PS3 version, the Move one of House of the Dead Overkill, and then Sega was looking to do Typing of the Dead, and since they had worked on the PS3 version, they were familiar with the code, so they were assigned to that task. That game started development in June.
Ha! Wow.
June, and they'd been working on it for a little bit, and then Blitz Games went under.
Oh.
That studio imploded in the middle of development of a game that had a less than 6-month cycle. And they were so passionate about trying to get this done that they talked to Sega as Blitz Game was going into liquidation and found a way to take a team of less than 10, move over, and continue work on that game because Sega wanted it out for Halloween. And so...
Wow.
That's why the game doesn't have multiplayer at launch. That's why it doesn't have sort of DLC dictionaries and some other stuff. But that stuff's coming. It's coming very soon. But I think that puts a little bit of that game in context, and not that it excuses games that aren't finished. Look at those Call of Duty animation videos that people were laughing at earlier this week. But I think when you think about that game in a 3-month context, that's kind of crazy.
That is super crazy that they were able to pull that off in that short amount of time, and definitely explains some of the jank and some of the shit that feels super thrown together in that game. But the typing part works, and that's really the important part, right?
Yes, and
Yeah.
I am super excited for the two DLC dictionaries that have leaked out, and they ended up confirming it at the end of our interview, which is Shakespeare, which sounds pretty good.
Okay, all right.
And I don't know what they're calling, but basically swearing.
Okay, so it's just a million swears.
And you can mix dictionaries together.
Shakespearean swearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm into that. As someone who is relatively infantile in their mindset, that sounds like something I would be super into.
Yeah, and man, those. I chatted with them for like 35 minutes for something that hopefully on my flight I'll have time to transcribe and put up next week. But
cool.
Just clearly a very passionate group of people, and they told me all sorts of really crazy little details. So when they were building the typing mechanic, they brought in some community managers that they were trying to find the people that could type the fastest. They were trying to get people. That varying levels of skill to play the game and see how the stuff responded. The community managers were so fast that they broke the game. The game could not keep up with them because I may be getting this wrong. I'd have to re-listen to what they were talking about, but it was basically they were counting one keystroke per frame of animation, and that wasn't fast enough. So they had to rework the engine to take into account people that were faster than that so that the game could even read their typing. And yeah,
that's
just
something.
a lot of crazy stuff in that interview that I'm excited to share with people. But I am really enjoying that game. I'm with you. It's a little bit rough, but it's still so much fun. And I don't know why there aren't more games that sort of use that idea. Like Typing the Dead is not embraced just because it is a goofy zombie game with you typing. That's part of it. It's a huge part of it. But people like typing. It's a very satisfying sort of exercise, and I wish more games would incorporate that because it's a thing you do every day that you just sort of take for granted, and then when you are sort of put to the test and realize all of your bad habits, like when I'm playing Typing the Dead and it comes up with a word that I normally type wrong every single time, but I just rely on autocorrect and spell check to sort of accommodate, and then realize that when you actually have to type it, it's like you keep messing up the E and the L, and that you just never quite learned the right way to type it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, those games growing up, like the Mario teaches typing, and later on the early Typing of the Dead games, like those helped me become better typists too. I played the hell out of them, and I became way faster by playing through those than just by doing. So there's actual tangible benefit to those games, I think.
Yep, and I will in my interview, I do answer the question of why they are not holding keyboards and why they are holding guns. I know the eternal question that everyone is wondering.
Okay. Keyboard guns.
Keyboard guns. All right. Well, why don't we look at some news, and then if people in the chat you want to start shooting some questions over as we go through the news this week, feel free to start doing that.
Not a hell of a lot of news this week.
A lot of small stuff.
Everyone's kind of gearing up for the launches, so other things are kind of falling by the wayside.
Report: Nintendo trademarks mysterious Great Detective Pikachu.
I'm glad you also wrote this down because that was the first thing I wrote down this morning.
I want to play that game.
Yeah, what could it possibly be? Like, what is the Great Pikachu Detective or Great Detective Pikachu? What type of game do you think that is?
Phoenix Wright.
You think it's Phoenix Wright with Pikachu?
Pikachu in a law setting, demanding some goddamn answers.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Still only saying Pikachu, just in increasingly Columbo-like cadences. Pikachu, Pikachu.
And he smokes.
Pikachu,
oh, he
Pikachu.
Smokes. He is a chain
Pikachu
smoker.
is smoking and has the lazy eye and is just totally out. Oh God, yes. All right, I'm super into that idea.
He has seen some shit, and he is going to solve this crime. That's my Great Detective Pikachu tagline. It sounds like this is something that could be a lot of fun, even though obviously we're not going to get our R-rated HBO Pikachu series. But that sounds like the right kind of goofy to do with that character. I don't know what it's going to end up being. Maybe it'll just be some dumb mini game, but I hope they do something really stupid with it. That seems like something where you'd want to take the stupid all the way to 11 and just see where it goes.
My only fear is that it's going to be one of those things that they only put out in Japan because it's so weird and out there. But, here's hoping. Here's hoping.
Yeah.
Have you seen this Wii U karaoke stuff?
Oh, yeah. I have. I tweeted that thinking it was a joke, but why don't you explain to people what it is?
Yeah, so there's this Wii U karaoke app, and it's based within some existing actual karaoke software that Nintendo just licensed for their own nefarious purposes. The interest, and that's not interesting by itself. The interesting thing is that unlike just about everything else on the Nintendo platform, the songs in Wii U karaoke are completely uncensored. So you have all these videos up of people singing these kind of, just fairly blatantly offensive, songs with lots of swears and kind of, sexualized lyrics and all this other sort of stuff, and none of it is covered up whatsoever. I think the first thing I even saw for that thing was some Brazilian dude rapping Afro Man's "I Got High."
Yep. Or I don't know what these lyrics are from, but I blanked her once, I blanked her twice, I ate that blank like shrimp fried rice in a Nintendo game. Oh my god!
Yes. So the response to this from Nintendo has not been to immediately run out and demand that they censor all this stuff. Apparently what they are doing is they are inserting a message that says songs may not be appropriate for younger audiences, and that is the end of that. That is a surprising move to me because usually when Nintendo turned off that their chat swapping stuff on 3DS because people were sending dick pics to each other. I'm amazed that they are letting this go through the way it is.
Yeah, and you know what? Could not be happier. I think that's great, and it's so un-Nintendo. Did it just somehow not realize it? Because part of the reason it's so hysterical is looking up these images and just seeing the Miis dancing around. It's the context that they're in that makes it so goddamn funny because it is just. It's crazy. Oh.
It's super crazy. It's super crazy that I have to imagine they just didn't do their research on this and were just like, oh yeah, music, fine, whatever. And then then they realized what they had done and were just like, well, too late now. Screw it.
Now I need to buy it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm definitely gonna grab that. Let's see. What else you got, Patrick?
The NWO invades WWE 2K14 next week.
They do?
I remember the NWO. That was back when I watched wrestling.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing everyone remembers from the 90s, really. This is some of those wrestlers are already in the game. These are like palette swaps of characters that are already in there, and then there's a few new guys like Scott Steiner and Kurt Hennig, otherwise known as Mr. Perfect,
Mm-hmm.
getting tossed in there. But it's just they do this thing now with that game where they release DLC monthly for like 3 months after it comes out, and then they don't do anything more. So there's a bunch more wrestlers coming, like Bruno Sammartino is coming at some point. A bunch of Ravishing Rick Rude and Jake the Snake are on that list at some point. So there's going to be some more stuff added to it. It's not nearly as good of a list as it was last year, though. Did you watch that Rambo trailer?
Part of it. But
Yeah.
I am so excited that you have said you're going to play and review that game. Did
I say that?
That was really bold of you.
I don't really remember.
to
I don't really
confirm
remember
that on the
saying
morning
that.
show that you're going to play the entirety of that video game and tell us how it is.
I don't. Is there evidence of this somewhere? I don't remember ever claiming that I would do such a thing.
I think it's called virtual bullying. Because if you won't play it, Alex, who the fuck will?
Yeah, that's a good point. That game. Yeah,
Can you explain why is this game so crazy?
It's a variety of things. One, it's being done by a developer and smallish publisher that I know very little about. It looks like a light gun game, like it's plucked out of some arcade somewhere and kind of thrown together for console purposes. It looks like hot garbage in the sense that it looks like a high-end PS2 game or high-end Xbox One game. Regular first Xbox, and also so it takes place over the course of the first 3 movies, and what they show from the first movie is a lot of you doing violence to cops. In the first Rambo, Rambo kills 1 person the entire movie, and they have made it so that is not the case anymore, which is sort of fundamentally goes against what that first Rambo movie was to begin with. So. Yeah, everything about that just seems incredibly ill-conceived. I don't know. Like, why is this happening?
Alex, you were born for this moment. This is the culmination of everything you've done in your life. Is this moment to play this?
This is making
Rambo
me question
game.
why I was born to begin with. Then, if this is the purpose, like, why am I here? If this is all this is all I'm meant to do. Oh,
has to.
nightmare.
Because someone has to. Yeah, if you have not seen that trailer, check it out. On our front page, it is. You think you can't describe? It's indescribable. It is something that has to be experienced, has to be seen. It doesn't make any other sense any other way. It is just moment after moment. Who made this? Why did they make this?
What are you trying to achieve with this?
Unbelievable.
What are you actually trying to achieve? Nothing.
I don't know.
You're just Give me something happy to talk about.
I think it's cool that Microsoft is sending out free copies of Killer Instinct and free Xbox Ones to some loyal Xbox customers. They haven't quite determined or said how they are breaking that stuff out, but lots of people are reporting getting emails in waves from Microsoft of getting access to the full Killer Instinct Season 1 package. And then select few people are reporting that they straight up got links that said, hey, click here to redeem an Xbox One. Your email's on file with them. They send you stupid junk on your birthday and like 20 Microsoft points or something stupid. But this is how you get a groundswell of good feelings as you move closer to launch. And hey, free games are cool. Sony's giving away Resogun. Killer Instinct seems like kind of the equivalent on their side. Yeah, I don't know. That's just there's not much to say, but I think that's cool.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where they're trying to engender as much goodwill as they possibly can, and certainly giving away systems and a free game will do that. And so far, a lot of times when you hear about people doing these kinds of giveaways, like there's some sort of weird, caveat or something messed up with it. But so far, it sounds like there hasn't been any of that. So let's hope it stays that way.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Oh, they also teased the new Mass Effect yesterday.
Oh yeah, but like really teased it. Like they didn't really show.
Well, they showed a screenshot
right.
that was sort of off TV and really hard to tell what any of it is. I mean, we're very much in super tease territory, but they're certainly treating this Mass Effect kind of how they treated the last Dragon Age or the new Dragon Age, which is to say, look, of course we're making this game. rather than be completely coy with it, like the video game industry is with all of its other super obvious sequels that are coming. I think it's cool, especially given how Mass Effect ended and sort of the divisiveness over that ending and the weirdness of them readdressing the ending in DLC. That series, which I deeply loved, not quite start to finish, but for the vast majority of it, and I still have a deep appreciation of that universe. It was too bad one of the defining sort of games, sort of the story arcs of this current generation, ended on such a nasty note. It certainly was not deserving of that, at least in terms of what it gave me in most of those 3 games. And I think Dragon Age 2 had a similar sort of like falling out with its fan base, and they've worked really hard to just sort of like be open and as much as a video game publisher is about a game it's developing. And if this is how they're going to treat the next Mass Effect, I think people are going to appreciate that. And I think this is a good way of letting people know, here's kind of what we're thinking, here's a little bit of the direction we're going in. It's sort of a win-win. They don't show too much, but they're showing enough to sort of get people excited.
I feel like if I recall correctly, the chatter around this one is that it's not going to be about continuing a Shepard story or any of that stuff. Like they're moving on in the universe. Am I correct or incorrect?
They have not said one way or the other if it's going to be a prequel or set long after the events of Mass Effect 3. Without getting into the specifics of Mass Effect 3, just I guess in the event that people have not finished that out yet, I hope it takes place afterwards. I think it would be really interesting to see what shakes out in that universe, and then also they sort of have to commit to an ending, and what ending they would choose I think would be interesting. But if they choose to go the prequel route, I think there's a lot to what's the police called in the Mass Effect universe?
Oh God.
Mass Effect.
Yeah, you're asking the wrong person because my Mass Effect experiences are slight at best.
Like the Citadel. No, CSEC. I think a police procedural as CSEC I think would be super cool. I would play that game. If they could team up with Pikachu, the great detective. He could be on the case as well.
Yes.
We could get our long-awaited Pokemon Mass Effect crossover.
Finally.
Long last.
Finally, you are speaking my language here.
Yep. So that's all I got.
Yeah, I now might be a good time to see if people want to throw some questions at us. I have a couple of smallish things. PlayStation 3 has hit the 80 million mark shipped worldwide. That's a pretty big milestone, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft was sort of outselling them month to month for a long time, but Sony has they've been clipping along. That machine has done all right, especially given where it started.
Speaking of things shipping well, Call of Duty Ghosts has already shipped $1 billion worth into retail. Obviously, that's not how many copies they've sold. That's how many they have thrown into stores. But still, that's another fairly significant milestone.
But it is, in the past, they have always talked about sold, not shipped. And not that you should necessarily think of this as the death of Call of Duty yet, but that's, maybe it's purely because of Grand Theft Auto, where that game has sort of made it so that Activision can't brag in the certain way that it gets to brag every year.
Well, not to mention the next-gen versions are still forthcoming, so there might be people holding out for that as well.
Sure, but that's a key, distinction, and I will be curious to see what the tail is on this one, especially because it feels like people are less into it than they have been in the past, but I feel like I say that every year, so...
Yeah. Did you see the bit where someone put side by side a scene from Ghosts and a scene from Modern Warfare 2 and the animations completely line up?
I have.
What up with that?
I don't know. I actually texted a buddy in the know to see if he could try and let me know what happened. I mean, hard to say. It's wouldn't be shocking if due to the tough timeline that those games are on, that they ended up reusing something. I mean, that stuff happens. I mean, go Google Disney reusing animation.
Right. It's certainly not unheard of.
No. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't going to play that game anyway, but yeah, that seems weird. That seems
That
weird.
does seem weird.
Also, I think it just reinforces that maybe Call of Duty is not the game that we should be using as sort of our metric for next-gen comparisons.
Fair enough.
Because maybe that engine and that team is just not in a place that, it's a fair comparison for any of those machines, regardless of what we're talking about with Xbox One or PS4.
Agreed. All right, is it question time? Should we take some questions?
I guess so.
All right.
Cotton UD asks, are you guys getting both consoles? I sure am.
Sure am.
Sure am. Let's see. Total Hell says that BioWare has claimed it's a different universe. How would that work?
Yeah.
I don't know how that would work.
I don't know how that would work at all.
Okay, sure. I mean, I believe you.
Not really a question, but sure.
Adam O, any comment on SwapNote for 3DS apparently being used by child predators in Japan? I guess that explains why SwapNote got changed. That seems like a good reason to change it.
To be fair, is there any gaming platform that hasn't been used by child predators at some point or another?
That's probably true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Anything with online, pretty much.
Nick at 50 millimeters. How much of a factor will a slick voice-assisted UI on Xbox One make for sales on the hardcore? Have UIs ever been a factor historically in console launches? No.
No, I mean they're selling that stuff hard in the ads. I mean they're trying to make that voice chat and or the voice command stuff a big focal point in the Xbox stuff. But I don't know. Like from what I've been reading, for one thing, the recognition is not 100% there yet. There's definitely still some stuff where it doesn't necessarily recognize exactly what you're saying and doesn't do the right thing. So. I don't know if that's really a selling point for most people. I mean, traditionally it hasn't been UI stuff, but, obviously Microsoft is trying to make it one this time around. I'm not necessarily certain that's going to work out in their favor exactly.
Yeah, I mean, but it also is super slick when you're on Good Morning America, things like that. So, when Microsoft talks about selling to the masses, maybe the UI isn't something that looks all that great to you and I, but, the Kinect sold a shitload. It sold really well. Not necessarily in the long term, but it makes for a slick presentation. And when you're talking about going on the Today Show or Good Morning America or any of those places, these launch games especially don't look good enough, I think, to pop to sort of your average Joe.
Right.
And the UI is something that at least you can kind of look at and be like, it's kind of cool in concept, even if, in practice, obviously there are still, some deep problems they need to work out. But, I read a story on The Verge this morning where they kind of went in depth about the TV stuff, and, I'm going to jack, my cable box into my Xbox One. I think that sounds like a possibly neat use of that. I am excited to try and watch football with that on.
Right.
If that stuff works, I think that could be really cool. Like, I would love to have a bunch of really neat and applicable stats, even if they aren't my fantasy stuff, on the game. It's just a matter of all that stuff sounds neat in theory. How is it going to work in practice? And I don't know quite yet, but I am legitimately excited to that machine launches on a Friday, and then I'll come home on a Saturday. I will hook that up, and then Sunday football. I'm going to watch on that Xbox One and see how all that works. And yeah. Definitely interested.
Still need to try and figure out how that's going to work for me since I have an HD TiVo that I'm already running my TV through. So I'm not sure if I can run a thing through a thing through a thing to try and make all that work. But we'll see.
One way to find out.
Yeah, one way to find out. Blow up everything in my on my TV stand at the same time.
90s Vi, do you know if Naughty Dog has a next-gen blockbuster in the making for PS4? Then I'll grab PS4. Any details? I mean, obviously Naughty Dog is... I can confidently say they are working on 2 games for the PS4, and that's not because of any inside information. It's because they have 2 teams, and they are no longer. I mean, I do know that they're no longer working on PS3. I would not be shocked if we see something from them at the VGAs this year.
Right.
I think
like a teaser or something.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of next-gen stuff at the VGAs. Jeff Keighley is actually hosting a PS4 specific event next week in conjunction with Sony, and has promised that there will be announcements there. So I think we're going to once these consoles have launched, starting this month, next month, and leading up to E3, we're going to see a real steady stream of announcements because there won't be a whole lot of games to play, but they're going to want to sort of tantalize the promise of what's coming in the future. And I think you will probably see an announcement of a new Naughty Dog game before the year is up. That would not shock me, and it will probably be a new Uncharted, which...
Would you rather they were working on something else?
Yeah. I'm sure it will be great, and it will be very pretty. But I'll play I'll play any game that Naughty Dog makes. I don't really want to play another Uncharted if I had the choice. But
I think that's fair.
Yeah, let's see. What else we got?
Patrick and Alex, any idea when PS4 reviews will start rolling in? I imagine they will start rolling in around the 15th. I think a lot of stuff is embargoed until the 15th, and then you will see a bunch of stuff come out after that because a lot of people won't get those games or those systems until the 15th. So basically the Friday through Tuesday of the 15th to whatever that day is will probably be where you see a lot of the reviews.
Poto Skull, any reason why Sony and Microsoft didn't go with multiple console SKUs? Will we see some in the future? Yeah, well, I imagine we'll see those in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if they split down hard drive lines again. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw a Kinect-less Xbox,
right.
Especially when they want to do essentially a price cut without a price cut, and a price cut would be dropping the Kinect. I don't think we'll see that very soon. I think they want the initial user base to be connected.
Ugh.
What? Keep going. Keep going. Are you dead?
Inside. If not on the outside, certainly inside.
All right, let's see if we can find one more question to close this out. Chobobot, with the next generation console soon releasing, what are your predictions on the future of Japanese game development? Will we see more participation from the East than we did in this current generation? Definitely possible. You should go and read. There was a pretty terrific story on Kotaku this week from Brian Ashcraft about sort of the rise or rejuvenation of Sony's Japan studio and basically why they languished so much in the last 6-7 years. And I think I hope that we see a rejuvenated Japanese game development this time around, because it's always good to have more of that. And they clearly struggled technologically last time around, and hopefully they have found their footing. Because I like playing a lot of those games, and it was unfortunate to watch them struggle so much.
Yeah, I agree. Patrick, what do you got coming up this week? You're leaving on next Thursday. What are you doing in the interim?
This weekend, my wife is running a marathon in Madison, so I will be on the road again this weekend to watch her. So I'll probably bring Pokemon with me, try and dig a little deeper into that. I'm going to finish Master Reboot. Probably. I was at the very end last night at 1 in the morning, and I just could not solve this one puzzle, and I didn't want to bang my head at it, against it anymore. So I'll probably finish that today. I want to try and finish off Typing of the Dead as well. And then maybe somehow steal a copy of Super Mario 3D World. Like, can I break into a warehouse somewhere? Like, where are they being? Where are you hiding them, Iwata?
I don't recommend
Where are you
it,
hiding
but
them?
You could probably try and make that happen.
Okay. What are you gonna do?
Let's see. I'm gonna try and play as much Tomb Raider as I can. Probably finish Typing the Dead as well. Jeff and Brad are coming into town on Sunday night,
right?
So we may all get together and try and get some dinner and hang out a little bit. Monday is the big Sony press event, where they will hand us PlayStation 4s and a bunch of games while we sit through demos and they explain to us how game consoles work. They're out of here on Tuesday. At which point, we will be. I'm sure once they get back, it will be all prep time for live shows and reviews and what have you. So yeah, basically just getting my next gen prep on for the rest of that week, pretty much.
Cool. Yeah, it's going to be November is going to be gone very, very quickly. We should relish it in a slow period as it is, because is about to get real nuts real fast. But yeah, that'll do it for Bombin in the AM, and I will see you on Monday, Alex.
Yes, you will. Meow.
Cat, 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 cat.